Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something right now. How often do you walk into a room and feel like everyone else already knows something you don't? How often do you catch yourself overthinking, second guessing, and wondering why others seem 2 steps ahead? Well, today, for the next 4 minutes, I'm going to show you something simple, something powerful. And if you lean in and really listen, you'll walk out of here with a perspective that will put you ahead of 90% of people. Not because you're smarter, not because you're luckier, but because you'll finally understand the mindset that most people overlook. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of your first keynote point about reacting versus responding, written in a Jefferson Fisher inspired motivational style, stretched into a deep and powerful flow that goes over 1,000 words. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the truth. Most people live on autopilot. They move through life like they're on a treadmill, reacting to everything that comes their way, never realizing that they've given away the single most important power they have, the power of choice. Someone cuts them off in traffic and immediately they're angry. A colleague makes a comment and instantly they're offended. A plan doesn't work out, and before they can think, they're already drowning in frustration. That's the default mode of 90% of people. They don't stop, they don't breathe, they don't choose. They simply react. And the problem with reacting is that it keeps you trapped in the same cycle. A cycle where your emotions control you instead of you controlling them. But here's the game changer. The top 10% live differently. They don't rush to react. They take a pause. They give themselves a moment to breathe, to process, to decide. That pause, just 1 second of stillness, is not weakness, it's power. Because in that pause, you regain control of the only thing you can ever truly control, yourself. Think about it. Life will always throw curveballs at you. People will say things that sting, circumstances will shift, disappointments will come. You can't stop any of that. But what you can stop is the way you let it control you. Most people don't understand this. They think strength is about hitting back harder, snapping back faster, proving yourself in the moment. But real strength is in restraint. Real strength is in choosing not to let someone else's action dictate your reaction. It's in realizing that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to raise your voice every time someone challenges you. You don't have to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. Let me put it like this: reacting is instinct. Responding is wisdom. Animals react. They act purely out of instinct, out of survival. But you're not an animal. You're human. You've been given a mind, a will, the ability to pause and choose. And the people who rise to the top, the people you look up to and admire, they didn't get there because they reacted faster than everyone else. They got there because they responded better. Let's take an example. Imagine a leader in a crisis. Everyone's panicking. People are shouting. Tension is rising. A leader who reacts will shout back, feed the chaos, and make the problem worse. But a leader who responds, who takes a breath, surveys the room, speaks with clarity, that leader creates calm, builds trust, and finds a way forward. One moment of choosing response over reaction changes everything. Now think about your own life. How many times have you reacted in a way that you later regretted? How many times did a quick temper, a sharp word, or a rash decision cost you peace, relationships, or opportunities? We've all been there. And the truth is, those moments weren't controlled by the situation. They were controlled by us, or more accurately, by our lack of control. And that's where the shift happens. When you understand that you always have the ability to pause, you realize that you always have the ability to choose a better outcome. I want you to imagine the power in that. Imagine being the person in the room who doesn't get rattled when others lose their cool. Imagine being the one who listens, who observes, who speaks only when it matters. People will start to notice. They'll trust you more. They'll look to you for guidance. Why? Because while everyone else is just reacting, you're responding. You're showing them what real control looks like. And let me tell you, control is attractive. Control is powerful. Control is what separates the good from the great. Think about the athletes you admire, the speakers you respect, the mentors you follow. They don't look unshaken because life never hits them. They look unshaken because when it does, they respond with intention. They've mastered the pause. Here's the uncomfortable part, though mastering the pause takes practice. It's not easy to resist the urge to snap back when someone disrespects you. It's not natural to take a breath when your emotions are screaming for release. It's not instinctive to stay calm when chaos surrounds you. But the top 10% understand that the hard choice is usually the right one. And every time you choose to pause instead of react, you're training your mind to operate at a higher level. You're rewiring your habits. You're separating yourself from the crowd. Let me give you a real-world perspective. Imagine you're in an argument with a friend. They say something hurtful, something that hits a nerve. 90% of people will fire back without thinking, escalate the argument, and damage the relationship. But if you pause, if you take a moment to breathe, and then respond instead of react, you protect the relationship. You shift the energy. You set the tone. And instead of feeding the fire, you create space for resolution. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Now, let's scale that up. Imagine applying that same principle at work, in business, in leadership. While your peers are stressing, overreacting, burning out, you're calm, composed, collected. You make decisions not out of panic, but out of clarity. You stand out because you're different. And that difference is what makes people trust you, follow you, and choose you. The secret to outsmarting 90% of people isn't knowing more than them. It's not being louder, quicker, or tougher. It's being more intentional. And intentionality begins with mastering that tiny, golden pause between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. That pause is your edge. That pause is your power. That pause is the difference between living life on autopilot and living life on purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to rise above, if you want to put yourself in that top 10%, don't waste your energy trying to control everything around you. Start by controlling the one thing you'll always have power over: yourself. When you learn to pause, when you train yourself to respond instead of react, you'll discover a strength most people never tap into. And that strength will carry you farther than talent, farther than luck, farther than knowledge. Remember this: reacting is easy. Responding is rare. And it's the rare things that make you unforgettable. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people don't realize. In a world that's getting louder, faster, and more complicated every single day, the real power doesn't belong to the people who talk the most. It doesn't belong to the ones who try to sound the smartest. It doesn't even belong to the people with the most information. The real power belongs to the ones who can take something complex, strip it down, and communicate it with crystal clear clarity. Now, most people don't do this. In fact, 90% of people do the opposite. They think that to be respected, they need to sound complicated. They pile on big words. They fill their sentences with jargon. They go around in circles because they believe confusion equals intelligence. But here's the truth: confusion doesn't impress people. Confusion loses people. And the moment you lose clarity, you lose influence. Think about it. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone tried to explain something, and after 5 minutes, you still had no idea what they were saying? Did you respect them more or less? Did you walk away thinking, wow, they're so smart? Or did you walk away frustrated, thinking, they just wasted my time? Most of us have experienced that. And the reason is simple: most people don't value clarity. They hide behind complexity. But the top 10%, the people who stand out, the leaders, the influencers, the movers, they do the exact opposite. They make things simple. They understand that the goal of communication isn't to sound smart, it's to make others feel smart. And when you can take an idea, a vision, or even a complicated challenge and explain it in a way that everyone can understand, you unlock influence that others will never have. Let me give you an example. Think about some of the greatest leaders in history. They didn't give speeches filled with confusing vocabulary or long-winded explanations. They spoke in simple, direct words that everyone, from the top official to the everyday worker, could understand. Why? Because clarity connects, clarity unites, clarity moves people. And this isn't just about leaders on big stages. This is about you in your everyday life. At work, when you present an idea, are you making it sound complex so people think you know what you're talking about? Or are you making it clear so people can actually follow you? At home, when you explain yourself to your family, are you giving them 100 reasons that confuse them? Or are you cutting straight to the heart of what you mean? Because I promise you this: the people who will rise higher, build stronger relationships, and earn more trust are always the ones who choose clarity. Now, you might be wondering, why do most people default to complexity? Here's why. Fear. People fear looking too simple. They think if they strip things down, others will assume they don't know enough. They confuse clarity with weakness. But let me flip that for you. It actually takes far more confidence, far more understanding, and far more wisdom to explain something simply. Anybody can ramble. Anybody can throw around technical terms, but very few can take all that knowledge and compress it into a clear, easy, memorable message. That's the skill that makes you unforgettable. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine two people explaining the same thing. One gives you a long-winded explanation with every detail, every possible angle, every piece of jargon. The other explains it in 2 sentences you'll never forget. Who do you think people will remember? Who do you think people will trust to lead? Always the second person, because clarity is sticky. Clarity is memorable. Clarity makes people lean in. Here's the secret: clarity is respect. When you choose clarity, you're respecting people's time. You're respecting their attention. You're respecting the fact that they don't live inside your head and they need you to bridge the gap. Complexity, on the other hand, is often selfish. It's about showing off. It's about protecting your ego. It's about making yourself look good rather than helping others. But when you shift your mindset and realize communication isn't about you, it's about them, everything changes. And let me tell you something powerful. Clarity builds confidence, not just in you, but in others. When you're clear, people feel safe. They feel like they can trust you. They feel like you know where you're going. Confusion creates anxiety. Clarity creates certainty. And in a world full of uncertainty, people crave certainty. Think about the times you've been in a difficult situation. Maybe at work, maybe in your personal life. Didn't clarity make you feel calmer? When someone explained the problem clearly and gave you a simple next step, didn't that ease your stress? That's the gift you give others when you choose clarity. You don't just inform them, you empower them. Now let's go deeper. Clarity isn't just about what you say. It's also about how you live. A lot of people's lives are complicated because they never decided what they really want. They chase everything, try to please everyone, and end up burned out and lost. But the people who live with clarity, the ones who know their values, their goals, their priorities, they're the ones who move faster, waste less time, and achieve more. Why? Because clarity isn't just a communication tool. It's a life tool. Imagine waking up every morning and knowing exactly what matters most to you. Imagine being able to cut through distractions and focus only on what aligns with your purpose. That's the power of clarity. And here's the thing, once you live with clarity, you speak with clarity, because your words will flow from your focus. People will hear you and instantly feel the difference. So how do you build clarity? It starts with asking better questions. Instead of asking, how can I make this sound impressive? Ask, how can I make this so clear a 10-year-old could understand it? Instead of asking, how do I make them think I'm smart? Ask, how do I make this so simple they can take action right away? Those questions shift your focus from yourself to others. And that shift is what makes you powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about the kind of impact you want to have. Do you want people to walk away from you confused, overwhelmed, and unsure? Or do you want them to walk away inspired, clear, and confident? Do you want to blend into the noise, or do you want to stand out as the voice that cuts through it? The choice is yours. Because here's the truth, in a noisy world, clarity is rare. And whatever is rare becomes valuable. If you can be the person who always makes things clear, who always simplifies without dumbing down, who always respects people's time and attention, you will be remembered. You will be trusted. You will be followed. So stop hiding behind complexity. Stop thinking you need to sound impressive to be impactful. Start focusing on being clear. Because clarity doesn't just outsmart complexity. Clarity outlasts it. And when you choose clarity, you instantly put yourself ahead of the 90% who don't.